It's a perfect time to introduce this new doll line that is truly gender neutral.
Introducing Creatable World. A doll line designed to keep labels out and invite everyone in.
You know, it's so funny, parents often tell me that they want to raise their boys to be really wonderful fathers. How do we expect to raise wonderful, nurturing fathers if we don't encourage nurturing play when they're babies?
The one that I got, it looked just like me. It looked cool. Like how you can change the hair and stuff, and it can be this to this. And we have options for short hair or long hair. And then even stepping into the accessories and the clothes. A lot of parents knew that this is the wave of the future. This is where society is heading, and they want to be on board on it. They just don't have the tools or the knowledge to
kind of guide their child.
What's up, y'all? Back again today with a very special video. So today, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I wanted to bring something to you, and it really was slightly alarming to me when I saw it, but at the same time, it wasn't really surprising. So get straight into it. Mattel, who you may know is very popular for making the Barbie franchise, has just introduced a new doll to their series, and it's titled the Gender Neutral doll. And when you see this, some people, of course, it's gonna be like a shock value for a lot of people. But I just wanted to explain what a lot of people have been saying, including myself. So if you watch a video of mine I made a while back on my channel called The Homosexual Agenda Part 1, I basically kind of dabbled into the idea of getting you to understand how they're trying to normalize certain behaviors and certain lifestyles and certain culture changes. They're trying to normalize them. Now, when you say normalize, now follow me. I'm not going to make this video too long, but I have to get you to understand what's going on. When I say normalize, what I mean is when we had the flip phone. Remember we used to have the flip phones, the flip cell phones with the buttons, the actual buttons. And then I remember the first time that the iPhone 1 came out. The first iPhone, my friend Norris had an iPhone 1, and I still had a flip or something old, right, with buttons. He comes with this touchscreen phone, and I'm like, let me see that. I'm like, what? He can do all type of stuff on there. My mind is blown. Fast forward to today, we're on the iPhone 10, 10 Plus, 10S squared. But imagine if going from that flip phone, my friend Norris had an iPhone 10. Imagine if maybe 10 years ago, he came with an iPhone 10 when we were only accustomed to the technology of flip phones. Do you understand? So I use that analogy to get you to see that sometimes in order to get people to get used to something, get used to an idea, you have to implement small steps. You have to implement it in small dosages, okay? You can't just force feed it to anybody. Moving forward, we have to understand why the normalization of a quote-unquote homosexual agenda would be necessary for a certain group of people, or why it would even be a thing. After all, the common misconception or the common argument would be, well, why don't you just let people do what they want to do in their bedrooms? Fair enough, right? I've heard that argument, and I agree. Whatever you want to do in your bedroom is really up to you as an adult. But now we have a new argument being brought up where children as young as 5, as young as 3, are being introduced, shall I say, into this argument about sexuality, about identity, right? So now, whereas we used to think of children being moldable and their identity changing along the way until development, now the society that we're living in is asking us to allow children to assume their identity at any form, at any time. Furthermore, they're saying that even babies, brand new infants, have a right to decide their identity. Now, why am I bringing all this up? Because again, they introduced a genderless, or should I say, gender-neutral Barbie. And before anyone says, well, why is that my concern? Or someone may also say, hey, well, you know what? I'm just not going to buy that for my kids, so it doesn't affect me. Fair enough. I understand that argument. But may I contradict with a other opposing argument. My opposing argument to someone who says that they're not going to buy this doll for their kid would be, okay, so what happens when your kid goes to daycare playing with, you know, his traditional race cars or his G.I. Joe or whatever, and then he sees another little boy who has a genderless doll, and the little boy is now telling your child at 4 or 5 years old at the daycare about gender neutrality, about gender fluidness, about transgenderism, about homosexual activities. Because after all, a lot of these children are being given the information of what it means to be homosexual. They're given the information on what it means to change your genders. So that means your child in the future, or maybe now, could be in daycare as young as 4, talking to a child who's telling them about these things, introducing them to these things. Now, why is this an issue again? Remember, most people at this current junction want to shield their kids from this knowledge of sex, of the details of reproduction and all this at 3 and 4 and 5, right? Usually at 3 and 4 and 5, the most you'll say is, hey, this is mommy, this is daddy, we kissed, we got married, you know, the stork brought you over, or we put you, you know, God gave you, you know, in our belly. That's the most you'll explain to a child. But now children are knowing all about everything. So while you may be saying, I'm not going to buy this for my child, and I'm going to shield them from this information, so whatever they do is not up to me, it doesn't matter to me, that's fine. But I want you to think about this. You're going to send your child to daycare with someone who possibly knows a lot about this, and since you tried to shield your child from this information and you never told them about what's going on, now your child is impressionable, and they're lacking the protection and they're lacking the discernment that you should have otherwise given them, right? And now they're going completely vulnerable into a situation in ignorance. And now, as we know, our peers at any age, whether it be 3, 4, 14, 20, 30, sometimes our peers are able to pressure us. That's where the term peer pressure comes from, right? Now your kid is 5 years old, knows nothing about gender neutrality, quote unquote, gender fluidity, quote unquote, non-binary, quote unquote, cisgender, quote unquote. It knows nothing about people living the trans experience, quote unquote, and you never told them, because although you see it going on and you don't agree with it personally, you don't want to tell your kid about it yet because he's 4. But remember now, you're in a society, wake up 2020, you're in 2020, you're in the future. In the future, you can't block your kid from any information, because the moment you give them that tablet, it's going to be introduced to them. The moment you give them that tablet, all of this information is privy to them. And I highly doubt, I've seen how many people, parents, sometimes me in particular, give them that tablet. Hey, what you watching? Oh, PJ Masks, what you watching? Mickey Mouse? Okay, go ahead, go watch it in the room for 4 hours. But guess what? A lot of those Mickey Mouse cartoons, a lot of those little Disney cartoons, you better start doing some research on who's making these cartoons. It's not kids making these cartoons. Think about that now. Who's making these cartoons? Who's making these dolls? Is it kids in the lab saying, yeah, mommy, we want genderless dolls. Yeah, mommy, we want to see Arthur, on our favorite character Arthur, getting married. We want to see men getting married. I'm just asking, are kids making these cartoons with sexually suggestive themes, homosexual themes? And again, please don't be basic and say, why is this your concern, Josh? Why is this your concern, J-LEETHAL? Don't say that, please, because you have to understand the larger picture at hand. What's happening is an entire generation is being introduced and infiltrated with something that they're trying to normalize it. Remember I told you about normalization. Like I said, if you had the flip phone and then somebody came with an iPhone 10, your mind is gonna be so blown, you're gonna think it's sorcery. So they gotta introduce the iPhone 1. Do you remember the first, the iPod? You remember the first iPod? That thing was black and white. Or the first Game Boy, that thing was black and white, Tetris, little blocks. Now the Game Boys, they got the internet on it, all Game Boy Switch, they got two kind of flippy. I seen a little boy with the Game Boy Switch the other day. I told him, boy, you so lucky. My Game Boy, I had a little cartridge, had to blow it, put it in the back, play Tetris. So they have to introduce technology and introduce ideas to you at a slow pace in order to normalize, in order to get you to not put up a fuss. Because if they give it to you all at once in its potent, unfiltered form, you're going to be like, oh, no, I'm not going for that. You got to give them a little teaspoon. So you got to put a little suggestive theme in the cartoon here. You got to pass this law here. You got to allow kids to decide their bathroom choices here. You got to slowly put this in place, because again, on my Instagram, I made a post 3 months ago when the movie Toy Story came out. And just so that, even if you don't agree, I'm tired of you calling me crazy and calling people like me crazy and conspiracy theorists. So here's my point. 3 months ago, I saw a movie, the Toy Story 4, right? I love Toy Story. I grew up on Toy Story. I was very little when the first Toy Story came out. I remember, I loved it. Remember, you got a friend in me. Remember, I mean, just nostalgic, just untouched, sacred, right? But that was then. This is now. I saw Toy Story 4, and they have a genderless character named Spork. Or Sporky, whatever his name is. You can do the research yourself, but I made a post on my Instagram where this character was created as a toy, and it's a spork. It's a food and a spork. A spoon and a fork. But it doesn't know which one it is, and so therefore it's all confused, running around. And then when you look at the toy, no joke, no exaggeration, you can look at yourself. You look at the toy has a rainbow on the foot. Now you tell me, is that just a coincidence? So when I made that post 3 months ago, I said, look, man, they're trying to introduce the idea of genderless or gender neutral toys. Look, they made this little toy that's a fork and a spoon, and it doesn't know, and it has a rainbow on its foot. I told people that. They're like, you're stretching it. You're a conspiracy theorist. They told me all of that. So now 3 months later, we have an actual transgender, quote unquote, genderless toy made by Barbie. No more subliminal messages. It's completely in your face, because remember, they've normalized it along the way. So you can't say you haven't been warned, and you can't say, look, my channel has been 3 years going. At this point, I don't know if they're gonna start cutting off my channel or my Instagram or any of my social media accounts, because I be speaking too much real. I've never, ever monetized one of my videos, not one. I haven't monetized one video yet, never. And my highest video has about 50,000 views. I'm sure I could have got something from that, but it was bigger than that, and I knew it from the beginning when I planned it out. I planned this channel out before I even made my first video. So now you have to understand why I made this channel. I made this channel because I love y'all, like I've been telling you from the beginning. Go back to my earlier videos. I've always been saying I love you. I'm here for you. If you need anything, I'm here to express and wear my heart on my sleeve. And it's not about disrespecting another community or another group of people or another culture of people. It's never been about that. When I go against white people, you see, look, go down my channel. No one group of people can say, oh, he doesn't talk about them. I talk about black toxic behavior. I talk about defeating the ideologies and the systematic enforcement of white supremacy, right? I talk about getting to know the Most High God and the real Christ. And I expose the indoctrination and the bastardization of the religions, right? I talk about psychology, all of that for us, for a discussion. I wear it on my sleeve. It's never to bash anybody. So if you're from the LBGT community and you're watching this, I want you to see that many people from this community are now disrespecting other people. Your main claim is that people are disrespecting your ideologies, disrespecting your rights, disrespecting your beliefs, disrespecting the way you carry yourself. And maybe that may be true to an extent. But now you've gotten to the point where you're forcing us. See now, because this is why. If I tell my kid, son, we don't agree with that. If I tell my son, oh, this little gender neutral thing, son, that's not okay. That's not how God made you. If I told my son that, now I'm wrong, but you're telling me we have freedom of speech. You're telling me that somehow, everybody just has the right to believe how they believe. No, you're introducing an entirely new doctrine, an entirely Some would say unnatural. I'm not calling it that, but some would say unnatural, and has many arguments to support that claim. You're introducing this entirely new lifestyle to a human race that has been in existence for thousands of years, reproducing with male and female. You're introducing this entire new construct, and I'm not supposed to say anything about it, and I can't tell my kids, no son, you continue to follow what your grandmother told you and what your mother told you and what I told you. I can't tell my kid that, hey, son, you follow what the Bible told you. I can't tell him that no more. So you tell me, how is this acceptance? Because it's always under the guise of acceptance. Anytime you hear that, because New Jersey now became the second state to basically prioritize and make sure and require that they're teaching LGBT studies in schools now, if you didn't know.
New Jersey has now become the second state in the nation to pass a law requiring schools to teach LGBT history in the classrooms. Governor Murphy called the law a step toward inclusion and fairness.
So again, how is it acceptance? Because they always use the word, we just want to be accepted. How are you accepting my ideals if my ideals don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't disrespect it, and I also accept you? I accept you as a person. I just do not agree with your lifestyle. That is all it is. It is not a phobia. It is simply a disagreement of your lifestyle. And furthermore, when you take that lifestyle and then you introduce it to my kids through ways like drag queen story time. If you didn't know, I made a video called The Grooming of the Next Generation, which is about drag queen story time, where they have public libraries all around this country, around this land, where they're having self-admitted drag queens, men with full-grown beards dressed in women's attire, going to public libraries and speaking to kids as young as 2 years old and teaching them that they could be a drag queen superhero.
You could be a drag queen superhero.
So now you tell me, if I live a lifestyle where I say I believe that I am a man, my physical anatomy, my chromosome makeup make me a man via science, and this is a woman, her anatomical structure and her gene makeup and her chromosome makeup make her a woman. If I believe that now, still traditionally, I'm wrong. So now you're intruding on my rights. Do you get that? It's not even, I don't even have to go into the Bible and say, if I was religious, how you're intruding on my biblical beliefs. I'm just talking about if I believe in science and that chromosomes dictate gender and that a penis represents a manhood. If I believe that because of science, you're telling me I'm wrong. That's infringing on my rights. So this is why it's an issue. And I've already gone too far. I wasn't planning to make this video too long, but I had to let you know what the issue was from our perspective. So you can't keep acting like it's a phobia, because I'm telling you now, I'm not scared of anything. I only fear the Most High God. But maybe I could be wrong. There's always that possibility, which is why I believe I've yet to receive a strike on my YouTube channel, which I actually am proud of. They could always take my channel down right now after this video, but I'm proud of, after 3 years, I even have a blackface video up. After 3 years, I've never received one strike. Only one video was removed because I had a discussion with the Jehovah's Witness. We'll talk about that another time. But only one video is removed. But after all of this, the reason why I believe I'm not getting strikes on my YouTube channel is because if there are bots or whoever's watching this, you can never say that I'm going out and just disrespecting someone for no, you can't say I'm being unnecessarily violent. You can't say that. I introduce my hypothesis backed up by supporting evidence. That's all this is. So with that being said, I don't want to take any more of your time. I gotta go. But please, you already know, vibrate higher.